Good day, everyone, especially to our professor, Dr. Melissa Sinabil, EDD. I am Felan S. Castañeda. So, my topic today is all about critical pedagogy. So, what is critical pedagogy? So, critical pedagogy is an effective strategy to enhance the critical thinking capability of the students and to generate positive behavioral change in students' lives. So, this is strategy that enhance students' consciousness, understanding, and judgment. It gives students a voice to speak in the classroom. So Fryer 2001 defined critical pedagogy as a critical approach to education, highlighting the importance of having learners engage actively in their learning process and being able to find and develop their own opinion and position. So Kaya 2017 explained that critical pedagogy is a concept that addresses the problem of education and the education system itself. So the purpose of critical pedagogy is to signal how questions of audience voices, power, and evaluation can actively work to construct schools into an environment where teachers and students can question the relationship between theory and practice, critical analysis, and common sense learning and social change. So, Freire 2001 identified critical pedagogy as a correct way of thinking that goes behind the indigenous. It must be produced by the learners in communion with the teacher responsible for the education. So Freire argued for learner-centered education, calling for a dialogue between teacher and student. And he argued for problem-posing education. So, the dialogue-based approach is to engage students in questioning and exchanging of ideas, to inquire and to learn. So problem-posing education is designed to engage the students in solving any problem. So through brainstorming. So John Dewey also argued for child-centered education for creating the child as a good citizen. So the main point of critical pedagogy is to engage the students in learning and to make them active learners. So Paulo Freire, 1921 to 1997, was a champion of what's known today as critical pedagogy, the belief that teaching should challenge learners to examine power structures and patterns of inequality within the status quo. So, how can we integrate Freire's ideas in the classroom? So first, implementing Freire's idea of critical consciousness means opening your own eyes to the injustices around us. So when you start to notice how one dominant group in society may be imposing a culture, a worldview of everyone else, you can begin to resist it. So there are practical things you can do to reduce authoritarianism, invite more inquiry and problems posing learning opportunities. So and develop critical literacy. So here are some examples. First is use first names in your school. So and have an active student parliament. Admit that the teacher does not know everything. So by owning up to mistakes, recognizing when a learner knows more than you do, and using their knowledge to support others' learning. So next is give choice. So by letting our learners select an independent task to complete, you can give guidelines like how many tasks to do in the time frame or whether to work alone or with others. So next we have make project work research oriented. So where a child follows their curiosity and makes a presentation to the class. So in this example, you're more of a coach alongside than a teacher at the front. So it is the make project work research oriented. So next we have think carefully about text, clips, and other resources you use. So are they reflective of both sexes, a diversity of ethnicities, and socio-economic perspective? And last, we have introduced the vocabulary of critical literacy. So by having a conversations around social justice issues. So often there are current topical issues that you can discuss as a class. So now we proceed to the critical pedagogy, context of instruction, context of assessment, context of curriculum, and context of classroom management. So we proceed now to the critical pedagogy in the context of instruction. So teachers should encourage students to observe and stimulate the students' awareness. So with the objective that they value social reality and build knowledge based on their experiences, to achieve this goal, teacher pragmatist the word creating the right conditions of the learning process to take its place. So we have students build new expectations, reaching a state of reflection that facilitates the understanding of their own reality, identifying problems and inconsistencies, and the search for new possibilities. So the use of dialogue is essential for the learning process as will create the mutual commitment among the students. So in addition, students' autonomy and self-management are strengthened as well as responsibility for their own learning. So critical pedagogy dynamics are based on social participation, education, horizontal communication, and evolution of social reality. And we have content vary according to students' needs and interest who participate in the establishment of goals, course objectives, and expectations. So the content treated must be significant and relevant to students. In this way, the students can relate knowledge to existing social problem in order to take the necessary actions to solve them. So learning involves exploring reality, developing awareness, and critical intervening in it. So we have methodological options start from the approach of problems or problematization of the reality and inquiry about problematic issues of the life of the students through questions. So within the method, there are 5 stages to be observed. So first, we have description of the discussion content. Second, we have problem definition. Third, problem personalization. Fourth is discussion. And fifth is development of the alternative solved the problem. So in first view, education is a practice of freedom and education should be an activity of freedom. So therefore, the teacher should understand the method of how to maintain the opportunity of freedom to the learner in the educational process. So through this method, teachers and learner participate in the learning process in many ways and meaningful learning occurs. So it can empower both teacher and learners. So thus, the teacher used the method based on asking questions during teaching. So ask questions about problems in the learners, leading situations and allowing them to think critically. So with this, learners can create new value of life for themselves. So such a state of teaching actually gets the learners the opportunity to make self-choices and self-decision makings. So now, let's proceed to the critical pedagogy in the context of assessment. So evaluation assesses the students' productions such as diaries, presentations, critical reflections, exams, and questionnaires, taking into account established standards. So here in critical pedagogy, the students are also part of the evaluation process in which they use techniques such as self-evaluation, per-evaluation, and hetero-evaluation, since in this approach, students gives prerogative to rate their own, to give judgments to their outputs. So next, we have to achieve critical approach to assessment. So it must be centered on dialogue, interactions, so that the rules of teacher and learner are shared and all voices are validated. So since the center of critical pedagogy is equality and fairness, it must foster an integrated approach theory. So in practice, or at fair probability term, as praxis of theory in actions, it must value and validate the experience of students to bring the classroom and importantly situate best experience at the center of classroom content and process in ways that problematize it and make overlinks with depression in dominant discourses. So it must reinterpret the complex of ecology of the relationship in the classroom. So to avoid the impressive power of relation and negotiated curriculum, including assessments. So equally owned by teacher and students. So such as approach, know that create challenges in discomfort but open up the creative possibilities for the reinvention of assessment. So this is particularly evident in relation to the ecology of classroom and dynamic power relationship that Gorin identified. So that is all about the context of assessment. So now let's proceed to the critical pedagogy and the context of curriculum. So critical pedagogy encompasses understanding curriculum as political text. So this political view of curriculum generates the most real eponymous body scholarship in curriculum field today. And no serious curriculum scholar will advance the argument that school in general, in particular, is politically neutral. So however, it is a complex issue given that critical pedagogy is not physically housed in any one school or university department, nor does constitute a homogeneous set of ideas. Because the literature is so vast, this paper does not seek to map the whole territory of critical pedagogy. Rather, it takes an overview of the central concerns and philosophies such development and briefly examines some of the literature that critiques aspects of critical pedagogy. Ultimately, the intention is to identify aspect critical pedagogy that are relevant to the issues of the teacher's education and the assessment of qualified teachers. So we have the curriculum planning is based on the idea that there is no single method that can work for all people. So therefore, the curriculum is designed using the experiences of our learners and realities of their lives. So in fair view, the curriculum planning is a completely learners-oriented process that starts with the learner's expectations and desires. He accepts the curriculum development is to continuous process that can be achieved through the mutual participation of teachers and learners or educators. So we have the curriculum development is not an upward down process, and all those involved in education and learning process should play their role in educational planning in the best way. So from this point of view of education is means to make people aware will the status quo of the society in mental progress due political and social condition. So, Fair's curriculum perspective, the process of expanding knowledge with simultaneous work and practical participation in economic efforts is implemented. So when qualitative and quantitative educational development based on critical awareness can be effective in the broader and expansion of the individual and collective life, educators associate school and educational planning with the job in economic production process. It is also believed to political situation and cultural heritage. Frere's education focuses on education of the oppressed. He believed that oppressed people have known critical thinking power for various reasons. So Freire takes that it is necessary and concentrate on the rural reality so as to adjust education reality to the country. In fact, they are focused on educational planning on the fact in many curriculum must be based on the lower classes of the society. Fair proposed various measures for society wherein the silent culture is dominated and the oppressed people are deprived of their rights. So knowledge of this measure is important for the curriculum development. So Freire also states that education must begin with resolving the paradox of the instructor-learners, including the pulse of contradiction that both the instructor and the learner belong together. So for emphasize the education to have a person to become sound efficient rather than ready-made. Therefore, the curriculum includes learners' daily lives experiences and techniques based on traditional skills. In addition, they need to be able to think critically and creatively to have useful life skills while being able to be main life with freedom. So, let's proceed to the critical pedagogy context of classroom management. So we have the teacher teaches and the learners are taught. The teacher knows everything and the learners do not know anything. The teacher thinks and the learners are memories contents. The teacher speaks and the learners listen modestly. The teacher makes rule of discipline and the learner follow them. The teacher chooses and imposes his choice and the learners command them. The teacher acts and the learners imitation her action. The teacher selects the content alone and the learners adapt to it. And the teacher confuses the authority of knowledge with his or her professional authority, which she determines as opposed to the freedom of learners, and the teacher is the main subject of the learning process while the learner are mere objects. So in the mapping system of education, the more learners were deposited and trusted to them, the less produce significant sensation that will arrive out of their transformer of that situation, the more they fully accept the passive rule imposed to them, the more adjust the world in general and a mass devising out the copy on reality. So according to Freire, individuals who knowing me or mistaking use of banking approach failed to experience that people on seeks themselves are logical anomalies about reality. So according to Freire, refer to the metaphor of traditional way to deal education as the banking model of education since it resembles saving cash in the banks. So this model reflects the structure of preserved society where the oppressed and the oppressor are divided. It advocates to the determination of reality, so it is vehicle for preserving political mistreatment, and utilizing freedom. So that's end of my topic. It's all about critical pedagogy, meaning of critical pedagogy, and the content of critical pedagogy in the context of instruction, assessment, classroom management, and curriculum. So here are my reference. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have learned more about my topic for the day. So thank you so much, and God bless us all.